Okay, we're back now, and we're going to look at more of the actual brush settings again, but we're going to come down to where it says transfer. And let's go ahead and click on it, and let's click the words. Oh, actually, let's do some spacing so you can see it. So let's click the words. Now, I've got some things already preset, so I kind of ruined it, but let's go ahead and take a look at it. This is what it normally looks like, okay? Every brush is consistent. I go ahead and I pull across, and everything's consistent. Now notice you're going to see opacity jitter and flow. We talked about opacity and flow over here on top when we just talked about the paintbrush tool. You can see it up here on the top of the over here and here. Remember what it was? Opacity is what I can see through, how much of the canvas comes through the actual paintbrush. So let's go ahead and let's change this brush so we can see it a little better. Let's go with something like this. Control Z, and let's go back to my transfer. Notice when I go up, let's change the spacing so you guys can see it really easy, okay? And we'll come back to transfer. So here's your basic straight dots across. Let's go ahead and mess with the opacity, and we're gonna go maximum so you can see the difference. Some are gonna actually go about 85%. And notice when I do this again, some are gonna be actually at 100% opacity, or actually 78%, and some are gonna be down to 0 opacity. So go ahead and let's take a look at this. And notice that, check that out. Look at the difference between all that. That's something that we're totally looking for, and I think it's really kind of neat, and kind of get a really kind of a cool vibe going here. Again, there it is one more time. Let's push it to 100%, and notice you'll even see some that are barely existent, like this one right here or that one right there. So that's what the opacity is. So now we're also going to talk about flow. We're going to go back to a different brush so you can actually see the flow, but let's keep the opacity about 80 degrees. Let's go back to our brushes, and let's use this brush right here, one of my favorite brushes. A little bit bigger. So back to transfer. Again, we'll show your opacity. It's doing, oh, we got to go back and change our spacing. Sorry about that, people. A little unprofessional, but here we go. Let's come back here, Control Z. Notice the same thing here, but now let's look at the flow. Remember, the flow is how much how much paint is on the brush itself. That's what we talked about flow. If it's at 100%, it's going to be full of paint. If it's at 0%, it's going to be absolute none. So let's take a look at, and we'll take the opacity off just so you can see the difference, our flow. Okay, you can kind of see difference here and there. So let's go ahead and go, and this is just the flow itself to 100%. Kind of looks like the opacity. It almost identical it is, but what happens is it's just not laying down a lot of paint. Well, there's a lot of paint here, there's a lot of paint here, but there's barely any here. Let's mess with both of them. Let's see what they look like. And there it is, you're getting things. Now let's go back over them again and see what happens. And notice some show through and some don't. So we're missing the both together. So I keep going back and forth. You're going to see buildup of some of the brushes. We can still see significant spots where it was. So that's what transfer is. You can definitely use it to your advantage with everything else. And of course, you can mix it with scattering your shape dynamics too, and we can put them all together. Now, you're going to see two more down here. One's called buildup, one's called smoothing. It's normally always on, and I like to leave it on, but let me just show you what it does, okay? So let's take off the transfer, and let's try just buildup itself, okay? It's kind of like, and you can see it, it's already selected. It's right here. It's the airbrush. So when I click it, I hold buildup. Notice it builds up. And we talked about that already. And it builds up. So we click once, that's the normal brush, and we hold it build up. So it's just like the airbrush, and it's right there, okay? So again, we also have smoothing too. We've talked about smoothing too, where it's 100% or not. So when I actually drive up, let's go ahead and get this close together. Put our spacing down to 0. Notice when we come together, we got a nice smoothing that goes there too. I could take it off. And again, it's a little jaggedy. Look at how much jaggedy is more than this one I had here. So they usually put the smoothing on also, and those are the two that are always continually on when you actually go to your pre-brush settings. So those are all we need to know about this right here, and that should be fine. The next thing I'm going to show you is how to make an actual custom brush, and that'll be our next one.